Well, it's about 15 hours since the Saints sent the card to the podium with their first-round pick, but I'm still having trouble believing they did exactly what most people thought they would do and what almost everyone with half a brain thought they should do. But hey, miracles obviously happen every day. Unless you're the Atlanta Falcons. Let's have some fun recapping draft night and introduce you to Taliese Fuaga. I think I said it right. We'll also hear from him along with Coach Dennis Allen coming up next. Let's have some fun on the Dattitude podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, New Orleans? And hello to my friends elsewhere, everywhere, out there, even in Atlanta. We can't figure out what was better last night. Saints taking the offensive tackle they so desperately needed, or the Falcons falconing like never before. Michael Penix Jr. What a bunch of maroons. I mean, really. There's no other way to put it. Falcons being the Falcons. You know what has no maroon in it whatsoever? Black and gold. And also the Dattitude podcast, episode number 232, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Friday, April the 26th, 2024. I am your host. I'm your happy host. I mean, I know some of you were upset last night because during the 5-hour draft show, that's what you wanted to see. They took Dallas Turner. What? That you didn't see that. Didn't happen. I'm Jim Derry, happy Jim Derry, and whether you are watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or listening to the podcast, as always, I thank you for being a part of the show and being a part of the Dattitude family. If you are watching live, you can type in your comment or question on YouTube, Facebook, or X. I will see it here. I will put it on the screen unless Gabe kills it out before I get to it. Yeah. I'm going to show it. We'll talk about it. If you're listening after the fact or have us on your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you can send in a comment to jderry@theadvocate.com, and Gabe can't filter those out. Sorry. Reminder, if you haven't already, a lot of people did last night. We appreciate you. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to the Dattitude YouTube page and click the little bell to receive notifications when we go in the air live. Give us a like, too, if you want. I don't know. Whatever you feel like doing. I'm not going to make you do it. We got a bunch of comments in the queue already. My man Jerry's here. He's rising up with them Falcons. Bunch of idiots. Fuaga selected. Philip, can the Saints stand to stay pat in the second round, or will they move up for a wide receiver? Could they move back and still get a decent receiver? Philip, that's all coming up on today's show. I promise you. We're going to be talking about that. We have clips from Taliese Fuaga, his introduction last night. The media got to talk to him for about 25 minutes. I cut out the best, minute and 45 seconds. The parts I thought were the most important. Of course, we got to hear from Dennis Allen. It's like a Derry's Dime today. It's like a post-game show. We've got to have fun with it. And I also have the most awkward moment of the night. I just clenched when I watched it. I only watched it once. I don't have the heart. We're going to watch it again together, and then that's it. I'll probably never watch it again. There's a moment when Dennis Allen calls Fuaga to tell him that he's a Saint. And maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being overcritical, but just gave me some moments. JJ's wanting to chop some wood. You're just trying to get me riled up. I'm not mad today, so you're not going to rile me up. We're not chopping wood this morning. No more chopping wood. Brad wants to know, will we draft another O-lineman with the second pick? You're getting ahead of me. That's definitely a part of this show. Second day tonight. We are definitely going to talk about that coming up very soon, I promise. So that is part of the show. Again, we're going to introduce you to Taliese Fuaga. We're going to give you the clip from Dennis Allen. We're going to show you the awkward moment when he made the phone call. And we're definitely going to talk about second day possibilities. And I mean, what show wouldn't be complete? What Saints show wouldn't be complete? It might be the best moment since 28-3. Really, it's not quite 28-3, but what bunch of morons draft a quarterback? I don't care how good he is. And look, in all seriousness, when the Falcons drafted Michael Penix Jr., it's not only such a huge disservice to their team and their fans, but it's a disservice to Michael Penix. I mean, this guy, I think he's a legit, like, potential top 10 kind of quarterback. And he's going to have to sit there for at the minimum 2 years. I'm getting ahead of myself. There's all kinds of things I'm getting ahead of myself about today. I tell you what, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves with. How about our new title sponsor that we love so much? Just give me a second. Before we get started, I want to tell you about our friends at Evangeline Securities. They are a local company founded in 2014 with offices. You know where their offices is. I told you this the last couple of days. They're right across the street from that big old building that you go to 8 Sundays a year. Or sometimes Thursday, sometimes Monday, whatever it is, right across the street from the Superdome. They also have an office in Lafayette. What does Evangeline Securities do? Well, if you are a small or medium-sized family business and thinking of either selling or retiring, Evangeline and its managing directors can help you figure out what to do to begin that process. How do they do that? Well, you can get into some fancy words. I'm not going to pronounce them. I'm from the West Bank. I don't use fancy words here. They're longer than like 6 letters. I have trouble with them. Simply put, they will come up with a detailed assessment of your business to first figure out its worth and then go through findings with you. When you are ready to proceed, they will run a free, extensive auction process among hand-selected investors from around the world to find your best potential buyer. More coming up later in the show, but in the meantime, you can check them out, www.evangelinesecurities.com. Okay, let's dive into it. How do we start this? David saying, okay, O-line in round 2, I agree. Again, jumping ahead because we're going to talk second day in a little bit. I want to talk about first day first. What is Brian saying here? Brian is saying, not every draft pick is going to make the 53-man roster in the NFL. Some might come in and wait a little bit before they make the squad. That's true. But you need your second day pick not only to make this team, but you need to hit a home run again. I mean, is Fuaga a home run? We'll find out. I think that most of us would agree that probably the top target, the top realistic target anyway, was either Olu Fashanu or J.C. Latham, but they both went before the Saints picked. You're going to hear when we play the clip of Dennis Allen in a little bit, that I think you kind of read through the lines. Oh, we had multiple guys graded all about the same. Come on, let's be realistic. Probably not true. Let's be real. But look, I really like this pick. I think Fuaga is going to come in. He's most likely the right tackle. We all know Ryan Ramczyk. I mean, being realistic, he's probably not going to be here next year. Is he ever going to play again for the Saints or in the NFL? Probably. I mean, I don't know. It's getting to the point where you got to think it's 50-50. I don't want to say probably. I think it's 50-50. He never plays again. So this could be the anchor, your staple at right tackle for a long time. Maybe today they get a left tackle. We'll find out. But the interesting moment, and offensive linemen are different kinds of dudes, right? Most of them don't have like this. They're not gregarious and have flair and all this stuff. So, but when this call was made, and I'm trying not to be too harsh with Dennis Allen. I told you last week that we're going to go in, we're going to give him a chance, right? I mean, some of you won't, and I get that, but we're going to try to be as positive as, going to be positive, brother. To be all positive here on Dattitude. Maybe, maybe not. But this clip, when they made the phone call, Tell me if it bothered you as much as it bothers me. It's so awkward. It's like you're watching a train wreck about to happen. I don't know, a bad movie where you're just like, can you get past this? I had to watch it. You're watching it with me. We're going to watch it. Tell me what you think afterwards.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Hawaii right now.
In Hawaii.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Great place to be for the draft, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What's Dennis Allen first? Just a second.
Yes, sir.
Taliese,
Hey, Coach.
how you doing, brother?
I'm good, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding, man. You're over in Hawaii, huh?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, listen here. We're on the clock here, and we're about to draft you, so it's a long flight from Hawaii to New Orleans.
Yes, sir.
You excited?
Yeah, I'm excited, Coach. I'm excited.
I love it.
Oh,
I love it, man. I can't wait to get you here. Look, you're a tough SOB, and that's what I love about you. You know what I mean? And that's the way we're going to play. So we're excited about getting you here. We can't wait to have you.
God love him, but Dennis Allen just seems like the guy. You know, on Christmas, when you got to talk to your uncle and your mom hands you the phone, you got to talk to your uncle, and you're like, here, oh come on. No. Okay, hey, Uncle Dennis. That's kind of what it was like. The dude just became a multimillionaire. I mean, he doesn't have the money in his pocket yet, but he just became a multimillionaire. You happy you're coming to New Orleans? Yes, sir. Man. JJ. He's I mean, that's mean. We're trying not to be mean. Terrence is right. Every word seems so forced. I mean, it really does. I mean, Gabe's back there saying Dennis Allen's brother. It just doesn't work. Dude, find something else. Brian, we need a running back and a wide receiver. Alvin Kamara is good, but he's getting up in age. Need a younger back. Absolutely. Coming up. All coming up when we start talking about the second day draft. All right, let's talk about Taliese. We passed the awkward part of this show, right? We're to the happy, joy part of this show. Said it already. I said it last night. We talked about it for 5 hours. Saints, I don't hear people talking about it anymore, but people were on social media talking about potential defensive ends. Dallas Turner was still available. What would have happened if Brock Bowers made it past the Raiders? There's Raiders people saying, I don't get this pick. You just drafted a tight end last year. You did, but generational tight end. What would the Saints have done? I don't know. It'd have been maybe a completely different show had Brock Bowers fallen. I don't think so. I think they still would have gone O-line. I don't know. But I think they did it right. I think this was the best offensive lineman on the board. Paul doesn't agree. It's okay. You wanted to go defensive player. I get it. I get why people would want to do that, but the Saints team was not the same Saints team that we had 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when you could pass up a need because the needs that you had then, they weren't nearly as glaring. I mean, how many times do we have to say this? This Saints team before last night did not have a real starting tackle on the roster. Andrew Speed isn't on the roster. Will he come back? I don't know. But if he doesn't come back, Saints still need another tackle. I mean, you cannot take, there are certain teams, some teams can take best player available. Some teams can make trades to take best player available. The Saints couldn't do that. They had to pass up the Latus, the Turners, wherever else you want to go. The kid from Florida State, I'm drawing a blank. You just can't do that, though. Do I think this pick will push Penning to get better, or is he a lost cause? I don't think Penning is a lost cause. I think Penning cannot play left tackle, okay? I think that he's shown enough to know, look, you can't have him playing left tackle. You just can't. Can Fuaga move over? I don't know. Is that what they'll do? I don't know. Again, a lot depends on whether they re-sign Andrew Speed or not. We're going to go in and find out over the course of the next, I don't know, probably next, it might be a little bit. They might not do it next week. They might not do it in 2 weeks. But I think Andrus Peat has to be a priority as soon as this draft is over, assuming you don't get a tackle tonight. Again, something we'll talk about in a little bit. Daniel, they addressed the need with a solid pick. He's happy with it. I think most Saints fans are happy with it. And the awkwardness aside, you really had to like what you heard from Fuaga. And we're going to play a clip of him and being talked to by the media and asked questions. I pulled about 1 minute and 45 seconds out of his call with the media last night. And I certainly liked what I heard. It starts with him and what he felt like when he got the call, his position, where he might play, those sorts of things. Let's hear from the man himself, and then we'll come back.
How familiar are you with this organization, like Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, and have you ever been to New Orleans or Louisiana?
I've never been there. You know, like the team, obviously, yeah. You got Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, and then you got Ramczyk at right tackle. Like, you know, I don't know too much about me. I don't watch too much NFL because, you know, you got to get away somehow. But, I know this organization, you know, they only love good, you know, great things to come. And, you know, I'm excited to give these guys my all. So.
Did you say you had family members who are fans?
Yeah. So you got to ask the question, like, who's from that area? But, you know, we don't really have, but it's just, you know, our family has like a big variety of teams, you know, 49ers, you know, New Orleans, Steelers. So, and now, especially now, since I'm, you know, now the whole family.
What was the moment like when you first got the phone call?
Man, I kind of like jumped up. I looked at my agent and I'm like staring in the eyes, like, do I answer this? He's like, yeah, you answer. It's like, what are you talking about? So I answer the phone and, you know, just, it's kind of hard to hold the emotion back. You know, I'm not the biggest guy in showing my emotions, but, you know, it's hard to hold back after you get a call like that. So.
And you played right tackle, of course, during your last year, but what do you think about your versatility to play on either side of the line?
You know, I feel pretty comfortable. Obviously, you know, I only play right tackle with live reps at Oregon State, but, you know, with Coach Malchek, he tries to move us around, you know, guard. Left tackle was like, I didn't play too much of it, but, you know, I still feel comfortable because, you know, working off season, I've been working a lot of left tackle reps, so I feel pretty comfortable, like, everywhere on the line, mostly.
Do I answer it? It's Dennis Allen. Am I supposed to answer this? Do I really have to talk to him? Yeah, you got to talk to him. Dude, you got to talk to him. But look, all kidding aside, he, you know, Gabe says he seems like a very likable guy. He does. I know a lot of you probably don't care if he's likable or not. You just want him to be able to block. He can block for Derek Carr. That is the most important thing. Jeff, playing with fire at quarterback. Need someone for the long one. You're playing with fire at quarterback. How do I put this? No. They're not drafting a quarterback. They waste a pick on quarterback. They're insane. There is no one, first of all, there's no one really after today that would have a chance to make this team anyway, even if someone that's still left, like a Spencer Rattler or Michael Pratt, they're not going to draft those guys. That's not going to happen. Stop talking about quarterback. Derek Carr is your quarterback this coming year and the following year at the bare minimum. At the bare minimum, Derek Carr is your get over it. Move on. If you can't move on, you're going to have a really tough time watching this team going forward. They are not going to draft a quarterback. Not going to happen. More second day talk. Again, we're going to get to that in a minute, but it's a good point. Saints should trade down with Dallas, get a running back. Saints can add a third, and Dallas gets a fourth. I don't know if they would do that. I don't know if that's the exact equation. But, yeah, I'm all about trading down today. Some of the guys that I like that aren't going to be on the list that I show you in just a minute, because the list that I show you in just a minute of potential second-day picks are guys that I think that will be there at 46 or have the potential to be there at 46. Not if they trade down. If they trade down, it's a whole different ball of wax. And I think they would be well served to do it. Keith, haters ain't going to accept Carr. I get it. But if you're going to hate that, you're just going to give yourself an ulcer. Dude, if you can't handle Carr, if you hate Carr that much, you better go to Sam's and get the economy size Tums, okay? Because if you hate him that much, you're either not going to watch the Saints over the course of the minimum, again, 2 years, probably 3, maybe longer. I mean, Carr could be this team's quarterback for 5-6 years. Don't say that. I'm telling you, realistically. I mean, unless they just shoot into a ball of flames and they'll stink up the joint. I just don't think they're that bad to stink up the joint. That's the problem for some of you. Not a problem for me. You know? Damn. Accept it. Come on, man. Let's not talk about quarterback today. It's not going to happen. Let's talk about Dennis Allen and his thoughts. And we predicted this last night on the show. By the way, Saints Insider / Dattitude live show last night. We're going to be back tonight. I won't be. I've got another assignment. I got play-by-play duties tonight, so I will not be on the show. But Gabe will be with Zach, and all the Saints beat writers will be back, and they will be talking about second day. It won't be as long as last night's show, but they will come on live somewhere around the 40th pick, assuming the Saints stay at 46. Somewhere around the 40th pick, talk about what has been taken, what's left, possibilities for the Saints on second night. Look, last night's show was a huge success. I know a lot of you in this stream watched last night. It is a much better way, and I'm not just saying this. I'm watching the draft on TV. It's cool. You get some info, but if you want to watch it from your team's point of view, that's kind of what we brought you. Of course, we talk about all the other picks. We had the ticker running, all the picks that were chosen. We talked about all the picks. We had slides for all the picks. But in the grand scheme of things, we were trying to tell you from kind of a Saints point of view. And that's what we did. You're right, Jared. Sorry, it's 45. I keep saying 46. I don't know why I keep saying that. I do, but that's like the 4th or 5th time I did that. We need O-line, more O-line for protection. I get it. All right, I agree. Let's hear Dennis Allen before we get to second day and before we get to Falcons and some other talk, because I definitely want to spend a couple minutes on the Falcons. We have a really good extra point today, by the way. It's not a fun one. It's kind of a mockery kind of extra point today. But, hey, we've had some good ones earlier this week. So, anyway, Dennis Allen talks about Fuaga, and he says almost exactly what you predict. But if you read through the lines, again, I don't think Fuaga was the top target, but I think they realized it's something we've been talking about for weeks, that they had to stay at 14. They could not trade up. I think they dabbled with trading down a couple of spots. It didn't work out. They did the right thing. In the end, give the Saints thumbs up. And God forbid, I give Dennis Allen a thumbs up.
You know, a lot of times you get into these drafts and sometimes a position of need and best available player don't always match up. We felt like tonight was a great situation for us. And that we felt like, offensive tackle was a position of need for us. And we felt like we had a really good player on the board that was available to us at that point in time. And so, and yet I think that was something that we kind of knew going into the draft that, that it was a pretty deep group of offensive tackles. And so we felt good. There was a handful of guys that we felt, really good about. As potentials at that pick. So really excited about Taliese. I think he's big, he's athletic, he's extremely physical. I think he's a culture builder type personality. I think obviously we liked what we saw on the tape. And then we sat down and had an interview with him at the Combine and really fell in love with him because we just felt like he was our type of person. And like I said, there was a handful of guys that we really liked. We felt like they were all very comparable and very close in terms of talent level and so they were all graded, pretty closely. And so we felt like there was a good chance that, we'd have one or two of them looking at us at 14, and obviously with 6 quarterbacks going off the board, it pushed a couple other position players down to us. So I think we were fortunate in that regard.
I might have should have cut that clip like a minute off of that clip. It was like him saying the same thing over and over again. Look, you know what? I don't think I really even thought about this before when it comes to DA. If he were more polished and was better with interviews and stopped saying, hey, look, and just trying to, I don't know. If he were better in press conferences, and maybe we'd like him more. I don't know. And I'm not talking about like him personality-wise, because I do like him personality-wise. I've met him a couple times. He's always very friendly, very nice. But just something. It's just bothers me. It bothers you too, I get it. Anyway, we're going to move on. I don't know where I'm going with that. Trying to be nice. We're going to be nice today. Word is that Gabe's telling me he's hearing Spencer Rattler is very much in... Come on, stop, man. Spencer Rattler is very much in play for Atlanta with the 43rd overall pick tonight as the team plans for the post-Penix era. Atlanta gonna Atlanta. All right, before we talk about Atlanta, let's talk about second day. Second day targets. A bunch of comments this morning already. We've heard what you guys think. I'm gonna show this comment again from Joseph. Should trade down with Dallas. Dallas can get their running back. Saints can add a third. Look, kind of talked about this with Zach. We didn't talk about it as much as I thought we would, but the running back situation for the Saints. Of all these names on this list, I know that most people are going to disagree with me when I say this, and I'm okay with that. I didn't put these picks in any order whatsoever. These are just 5 guys I think are probably, depending on what position this team might be looking at, I think these are probably the top players at certain spots that would be available when the Saints pick at 45. So obviously I don't have Ladd McConkey on here. I don't have Kool-Aid McKinstry on here. There are guys that are going to go. I don't have Connor DeJean on here. He's not going to be around. Those are 3 guys that I think certainly will be gone by the time the Saints pick. So with that being said, these are guys that I think will be available at 45 that I think should be and will be targets for the Saints. And I'm going to start with Jonathan Brooks. Again, he is probably the top. I mean, it's debatable, but he's certainly one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in this draft. If you get to 45 and the top running back in the draft is available and you have a chance to take him with what you have in your room, again, Alvin Kamara, 29 years old. I don't expect Alvin Kamara to have the Alvin Kamara season that we've come to know and expect. It's going to start going downward. Do I think he's going to have a bad season? No. But I think that it's something that this team really needs to think about. Will Kendra Miller be the player that we expected him to be and fans wanted him to be? He certainly wasn't that last year. He showed at the end of last year that he has potential to be the player that Saints fans want him to be. But even if he is, you cannot have enough running backs. I think running back is more important in this team than the wide receivers. As it is A.T. Perry a number 3 receiver? I think he is. Is Cedric Wilson a number 3 receiver? I think he is. So you have a 1, a 2, and a couple of 3s. Equimania St. Brown could be a number 3. You do have ifs. I'm not saying you shouldn't draft a wide receiver in this draft. And if they go get Keon Coleman, I'm not going to say, oh, that's a terrible pick. Keon Coleman would fit in with this team. He could start right away. He could be a solid 2/3. But I think this team needs running back more than they need wide receivers. So if you're going to talk about skill players, and I don't even know if that's the pick that I would make, because you look at a Kingsley Suamataia, so then you have a Suamataia and a Fuaga. But Suamataia is a left tackle. I mean, he's played right tackle as well, but he's really a left tackle. He was a left tackle at BYU last year. I think he fits this team. You're talking about you could have your starter at left tackle and your starter at right tackle. I truly believe that. then you can have time to develop Penning some more. Maybe move him to guard. Maybe he is a backup tackle. You're not paying him that much money. It's okay if Trevor Penning. Look, you can't make up for past picks. You can't make up for past picks. It is what it is. I'm not saying you give up on Penning, and if he's a backup, that's what it is. He's making league basically the rookie contract that he set out with 2 years ago. He's got 2 more years on that deal. Maybe he can be a backup tackle. Maybe he is turned into a guard. I don't know. But if you draft a guy like Suamataia, I think you have a starting left tackle there. I think you have Fuaga as a starting right tackle. I think maybe you find out if Saldiveri can play left guard, or maybe Penning can be moved to guard. You have a lot more options. I think suddenly your offensive line, I mean, this doesn't sound great, but it's better than what you've been. I think your offensive line goes from being one of the 3 worst in the NFL to about middle of the pack. And middle of the pack isn't something you strive for, but it's really kind of the best you can do right now. And the best you can do right now, if you get to middle of the pack, Derek Carr was the 12th best quarterback in the league by statistical measures last year. If Derek Carr has an offensive line that's middle of the pack, I think he suddenly becomes a top 10 quarterback. Jeff. No, man, they're a dime a dozen. I think he's talking about I assume you mean the running back. I disagree. They're not a dime a dozen. It's just not. Running backs are different. Wide receivers, maybe they're a dime a dozen. And then you see that I'm going to talk about Jackson Powers-Johnson last. But TJ Tampa, the reason why he's on this list is simple. Duncan talked about it on this show on Wednesday. Is Marshawn Lattimore going to be traded? Just because he wasn't traded last night, he talked about why Marshawn Lattimore wouldn't be traded during this draft. Because of the salary cap implications that he has on the Saints, he really can't be traded until post-June 1. So it wasn't like the Saints could trade Lattimore last night and get a pick for him this year. Now, they could trade him and get a pick maybe next year for him. Maybe get as high as a second rounder. But the implications of the cap on this team made it so where they cannot trade him until June 1. So if the Saints go out and get a cornerback in round 2, which is a possibility, then that is a signal that Marshawn Lattimore is moving on. And TJ Tampa of Iowa State, again, would they rather have DeJean from Iowa, or would they rather have Kool-Aid McKinstry? Of course they would. But those 2 guys are probably going to be gone by the time that they pick. So that's why TJ Tampa is on this list. And then Jackson Powers-Johnson, look, how comfortable do you feel with Saldiveri? If you don't, then Powers-Johnson is a potential pick there. Even though he's played center and that's his primary position and Eric McCoy's not going anywhere, not only would you have another backup center, it's kind of what Cesar Ruiz is right now, right? I'm not a big Cesar Ruiz fan. That's a whole nother story. But Jackson Powers-Johnson could come in and fill that spot. So, look, my choice is, and if I had to say right now what I think they're going to do is, I actually think they're going to take a skill position player with the second round pick. If you told me for sure it was one of these 5 guys and I had to put money on it, which I don't and I'm not, I would say it's going to be Keon Coleman. I would say that that's probably the most likely pick for this team because I think that's where they think they need the most. Just because I don't agree doesn't matter. But what I would like, if I had my choice, which is different from what I think, I would take Suamataia. I think getting another offensive line that could come in and start right away not only makes perfect sense, but it solves a lot of problems. It gives you more options on this offensive line. We'll see what they do tonight. We've heard from you guys. What are they going to do? We're going to find out. Before we move on to the extra point, I'm going to put the Fuaga slide back up, actually, because it kind of goes back into the first round we're talking about. And if you guys got comments on the Atlanta Falcons debacle last night, I'd love to hear it. There was a post this morning, and Gabe sent me the clip, and I'm going to talk about Mina Kimes this morning on ESPN on Pardon My Take. You got to see this face she makes when they start talking about. Look at this face. She says, quote, "I find the justification to be somewhat logically incoherent. If you think you're going to be good, which is why you pay Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed, it's a $200 million contract, $100 million guaranteed. You're doing your team a disservice by not making your team better so that you can compete now. It just doesn't add up for the team or the player. Do yourself a favor out there. If you guys haven't gone through and looked at some of these memes on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, even if you don't have an X account or a Twitter account, I'm not telling you to go download the app. You can find them on the internet. You can just go to your browser and click on X. I don't think you have to have an account to do a search. You got to go look at some. They're hilarious. Jerry, roasted Falcons. The Falcons. I just call them the 28-3s. Who does that? Did you see the reaction of Terry Fontenot, the GM of the Falcons, trying to explain to Arthur Blank what they just did? And he's standing there like, huh? With this stare. Got to find that clip too. I played enough clips on the show today. It's insane. I mean, who does this? $200 million contract, $100 million guaranteed to Kirk Cousins. So at the bare minimum, by the time he gets a chance to start, Michael Penix will be 26 years old, probably 27. What makes you do that? This is exactly why when we were talking about with Garland Gillen, and I talked about this on Final Bet and on the show a little bit, but whether the Saints should be favored or the Bucs should be favored or the Falcons, they're kind of, I wouldn't say a prohibitive favorite, but they're minus 130, at least going into the draft. They were minus 130 to win the NFC South. That means you got about $130 to win 100. Meanwhile, the Bucs were plus 300, which is 3-1 to win the division. Saints are almost 4-1 to win the division going into the draft. What makes the Falcons be such a favorite? I wouldn't put a dime on them winning the division before the draft or after the draft because they're going to do what they always do. There's a reason why they were 7-10 the past 3 seasons and held on to a coach that made Dennis Allen look like Bill Belichick because they are inept. They are an inept franchise. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And look, like I said, in all seriousness, this part is serious. And I feel bad for Michael Penix. This kid is going to be, to me, could be, by all reviews, by all experts' standards, could be a top 10 quarterback in this league. But you can't be a top 10 quarterback when you're sitting on the bench. And those who want to compare it to what Green Bay did when they took Jordan Love, it's completely different. You're talking about a Packers franchise that was perennially going to the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. There's no Aaron Rodgers in Atlanta. This team isn't, even if they do win the division, where are they going? Nowhere. And now this kid's going to have to sit there and sit on the bench and learn from Kirk Cousins or whatever in this coaching staff. I don't know. I saw one point of view that was interesting, that Fontenot and Raheem Morris did this basically to give themselves job security because they can say if they stink, well, we have our future at quarterback and we haven't been able to play yet, or if they are mediocre. I mean, I don't know. Gabe said Penix isn't a kid. He's 24. I call that a kid. I still call that a kid. As long as the Saints are in the NFC South, Jerry says the Falcons will never, ever win the division and make the playoffs or Super Bowl. That's going a little far. I certainly think they can win the division because they have a ton of talent on offense. But when you had the defense that they had, they were ranked by several services as having, the worst pass rush in the league. You got a chance to draft Latu or Dallas Turner, and you pass. Make it make sense. You can. What are some of the other picks that you liked in the draft? Look, the draft pretty much went as a lot of us thought it would go. We talked about the first 7 picks were almost to script. I don't think anything was a surprise there. How about the Chicago Bears? You know, I'm not a huge Caleb Williams fan, but when you had already added weapons to the Bears. Now you got Caleb Williams and you got Rome Odunze. It's pretty interesting. Some other picks that I thought I was surprised the Bengals passed on Brian Thomas. Look, Amarius Mims is 6'8", and he's a monster. And Joe Burrow needs to be protected, so I get it. But I was kind of surprised they didn't add another weapon there. Not saying it was the wrong thing to do. Just kind of surprised me. Other picks, the Chiefs. Look, the last time the Bills and the Chiefs made a first-round trade, that didn't work out so well for the Buffalo Bills. That was when they traded, the 10th pick of the draft, and the Chiefs jumped ahead of the Saints and snatched Patrick Mahomes from the grips of Sean Payton. Would Sean Payton still be here if Patrick Mahomes was drafted that night? I think he would be. I think this would be a completely different franchise. Now, it might have kicked Drew Brees into retirement a year earlier. I don't know. Brian, Falcons might draft a player that did the same thing that Taysom Hill is doing in the team right now. Michael Penix? I don't know if you're talking about Michael Penix, but he's nothing like Taysom Hill. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. Sorry, Brian, if I am. But the Chiefs go out and get Xavier Worthy, who is he weighs as much as a wet towel, but the dude is super fast and could play the role of Tyreek Hill. What were the Chiefs missing, even though they won the Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't want to play the Chiefs twice a year. Good luck with that, Sean Payton. Speaking of Sean Payton. So there were some good picks, and then the Bills trade out of the first round altogether, and they'll have assuming they don't trade it, they trade out of the first round altogether. Carolina, by the way, traded into the first round and went and got Xavier Legette of South Carolina. Don't we think there were a couple other better receivers than Xavier Legette? I mean, he is from South Carolina. Maybe they're trying to do something the Saints don't do, and that's get homegrown talent. They're trying to put butts in the seats. I don't know if Xavier Legette's going to do that. You think? I don't know. Dale, I know you were watching for most of last night. We saw some comments of you. Jason Garrett said, if you keep defending Carr, he would be back covering John Curtis basketball, JCC basketball league. Great show last night, by the way. Look, I'm defending Carr because the facts defend Carr. You know, I make fun of his, we got to stay positive, brother. I do that sort of thing. But I'm defending because the stats defend him. He's not Drew Brees. Drew Brees is gone. He's never coming back. Don't we understand that? Gabe says the Bills did a smart thing, trading back to 33 and giving them a chance to talk trade with the 49ers. Maybe. So maybe that the Bills' point was last night. I don't know. All right, time to move on and get to the extra point as we close out the show today. Before we do so, I want to tell you one more time about our friends at Evangeline Securities. They can help you begin the process of analyzing whether it's time to sell your small to mid-sized business. If you're thinking about retiring, if you're thinking about just selling, either one, you're going to want to check out our friends at Evangeline. Their New Orleans hub is at 909 Poydras Street. You can find that one pretty easily, right? The managing directors here, Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt, are born and bred in the Crescent City and are both alums from Jesuit High School. We will not hold that against them. I promise. That's not what we do here in Dattitude. Nick graduated from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm having struggling just reading it because those are big words. I told you about me in big words. Ron did the same at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Both spent plenty of time in the New York financial circles, each with more than 20 years of experience in investment banking. Let Ron and Nick help get you on your way to the next chapter of your life. Check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com to get started. How would Buddy D deal with the internet? I mean, he had trouble with two W's. WWL. What would he do with WWW? That would be really tough for him. Philip, Carr was pretty solid with a crappy bunch of offensive coaches A to the men. Let's see what he can do with Clint Kubiak and a different offensive line. Do I think our first-round pick will be a Hall of Famer if he stays healthy and stays on this team for his whole career, in my honest opinion? Hey, let's just have him make the Pro Bowl or something first. I don't like to label guy. I mean, the first pick of the draft. Do we think Caleb Williams is going to be a Hall of Famer? Do we think Jaden Daniels? You can't. I always hate it when pundits / experts, and it doesn't happen as much as it used to, but this guy could be a future Hall of Famer. I mean, how do you know? Anybody could be a future Hall of Famer. I mean, Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round. Was anybody saying when he got drafted, this guy could be the greatest player to ever play football? No. He was like some scrawny dude they didn't even think would start ever. And he only played his first year or second year because Drew Bledsoe got hurt. Can't call somebody a Hall of Famer. It's a little bit too early for that. All right, let's finish up the show. If you want to get a comment in, you got a couple minutes to do so. I'll show it before we go off the air, but I do want to get to the extra point because, look, I got to sigh before I do this one because this is kind of what I thought was going to end up happening last night. This was the feeling that I was getting. Most of us feel good about the Saints' first-round pick from last night. So we don't want you leaving here on this Friday with too much happy, joy. Nah. We have got to inject a little Derry downer into the show just to keep you who that's grounded, even if it's just a little bit. So to do that, we're wrapping up today's show with a not-so-feel-good extra point. Let's go back 21 years ago today to another trade-up moment for the Saints that was even worse than what the Atlanta Falcons did last night. Way worse. Like way worse. Remember Jonathan Sullivan? It's understandable if you don't. On April 26, 2003, the Saints entered the first round of the NFL draft sitting pretty with the 17th and 18th overall picks. They were coming off a season, I'm sorry to remind you about some of you about this, they were coming off a season in which they just finished 20-2 in brutal fashion, needing just one victory in their final 3 games against teams that would finish a combined 15-33. That's all they needed to do was beat one of the 3 to earn a playoff spot. Instead, they choked in the worst of ways, including a 20-13 loss to the eventual 2-14 Cincinnati Bengals the Sunday before Christmas. Oh, by the way, that was also 8 days after. This was all during I got married the first time during this stretch. It was only apropos that the Saints just stunk it up. Yeah, my first wedding, my first marriage was the day before the Saints lost to the Minnesota Vikings, which was the first. The Vikings went 6-10 that year. They finished it with a loss to the Carolina Panthers, who went 7-9. In fact, the Saints opened the season that year 7-2 and looked like one of the best teams in the NFL before losing 5 of 7 to wrap it up. On draft day, the Saints made that big move, as they often do. This one was a stinker of ultimate proportions. They traded those aforementioned 17th and 18th picks to the Arizona Cardinals for the 6th overall pick and chose Georgia defensive tackle Jonathan Sullivan. When he finally showed up to training camp after an extensive holdout, he showed up out of shape and unwilling to get rid of that gut that resembled that of a certain podcast host who is hypocritically now making fun of him. Hey, I have no clue what that dude looks like now. But let me tell you a little story about Jonathan Sullivan. Back when I was covering the New Orleans Voodoo, the Arena Football League team, they were owned by Tom Benson at the time. And they were outside practicing. I'm not sure why they were outside practicing, but it was during a mini camp. And some defensive Saints players were out in the distance working out. And I asked Mike New, I said, Mike, how come you're not coaching in the NFL? I mean, you've been doing this long enough. You could certainly get a job in the NFL. And he looked at me dead in the eye and he said, you want to know why I'm not coaching in the NFL? And he pointed right at Jonathan Sullivan, who was literally walking up a hill while all the other players were running back and forth. And he said, it's because fat sons of bitches like that. Can't make it up. Jonathan Sullivan. In the end, Sullivan would start just 16 games in 3 seasons for the Saints. 12 of those coming in his rookie campaign. He would be cut the following nightmare. He would be cut following the nightmare 2005 Katrina season, never to be seen again anywhere but outside of Shoney's Breakfast Buffet. Hey, at least he was an all-pro there. Well, that is going to wrap up an insane week of Dattitude. Again, oh, wait, before I go off, Philip's got a comment about Jonathan Sullivan. He says he remembers when they picked him and he's just sunk his head in shame, like when they traded the whole freaking draft for Ricky Williams. By the way, Jonathan Sullivan, we did a top 10 all-time Saints busts. Larry Holden made Jonathan Sullivan number 2. I didn't look to see what was number 1. I'm assuming it was Sean Knight. But Jonathan Sullivan's up there. Worse than Ricky Williams, I think. All right. Reminder tonight, we are going to continue Saints Insider Dattitude Draft Show. It will be live on all these same channels, assuming you're watching live and not just listening to the podcast. But on all these YouTube channels. So go subscribe to the YouTube Dattitude page so you can see it. Gabe's going to be filling in for me tonight. I have another assignment, but it's been an insane week here for the Dattitude family, and that is going to do it for this Friday. I do want to thank Gabe Henderson for all of his hard work behind the scenes. He has done an excellent job. And look, the 2 months here, we're wrapping up 2 months here with the new redesign or whatever you want to call it of Dattitude and the way we're doing the show here. It has taken off, and that is because of you guys. We're getting more and more people following us every day. And I couldn't do it without Gabe, couldn't do it without the people here with you people. And so come back Monday. Because you know what? On Monday, we're going to have, listen, I got to tell you about next week, real quick. Next week, Monday, Luke Johnson's coming on the show to recap the Saints draft. And then Wednesday, you're not going to want to miss it. Wednesday, Taryn Wack, who used to work for us here at NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, she now works for the Atlanta Falcons and is their beat writer on their website. I booked her before Michael Penix, I promise. I'm not going to give her too much grief. Now, that's assuming she's still going to want to come on. But Taryn Wack is scheduled to come on next Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss that show. It's going to be a lot of fun, I promise. All right. Reminder again to subscribe to the Dattitude YouTube page. Give us a like. Click the little bell. You can receive notifications whenever we go on the air live. Podcast. As always, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you miss it live, you can listen to the replay in the car on your podcast. Have a glorious weekend. Keep your fingers crossed for the rest of the draft. May the Saints pick every player that you could possibly want. Well, we'll see you on Monday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.